Chapter 3. I stared miserably out the van window. How had it happened so fast? Here it was, only Monday, and I was being shipped off for my community service. Man, I've got friends who put off their service for almost 2 months. I didn't even get 2 days. The sergeant had felt free to call a judge who specializes in juvenile cases. This bleeding heart judge was more than happy to come in on a Saturday morning to deal with a pathetic case whose parents couldn't be found. And lucky me, this judge just happened to have a good friend who ran a farm that took community service kids. Oh joy. This whole thing seemed awfully convenient. Somehow it just didn't feel right. But who's going to listen to a kid like me? For the fourth time in a minute, I let out a sigh. A big, raspy sigh designed to let the whole world know I was miserable and being screwed over, and a sigh looking for some sympathy, but also looking to tick off anyone who had to hear it more than once. The cop driving the van rolled his eyes and shook his head. He wasn't giving pity or lectures on how this was my own fault. Apparently he knew I'd gotten plenty of those at the station. By the time my mom showed up at the police station at 2:30 Saturday afternoon, I had been treated to at least 4 different forms of the accept responsibility for your choices in life speech. Mom, however, wasted little time on words. You little scumball, this is just what I need. I don't want to see your ugly face again until Monday when they pick you up. Don't, she said, blowing smoke in my face as I started to say something. Don't, or I'll beat you black and blue. You better keep your sorry butt in your room until you go to your community service. Even the cops looked a little surprised at her threats, but they didn't do anything about it. They didn't ask how I was going to get food from Saturday afternoon till Monday morning. I guess they assumed I wouldn't actually stay in my room that long. Of course, she saved the real show for the house. I got off pretty lucky, though. She only slapped me across the face twice. One forehand swing left a nice bruise on my cheekbone. The backhand left me with a string of scratches from her rings. Then I was told I was not to step foot out of my room until the van showed up Monday morning. I think I got off easy simply because she was so tired. 3 in the afternoon is, of course, the middle of the night time. I wouldn't have stayed in my room, except I didn't have a choice. When I woke up Saturday night, after my mom left for work, I discovered she had locked the door from the outside. Sunday morning, she left a couple of cold pieces of pizza in my room. I guess she forgot to leave me anything Sunday night, but she did remember to unlock my door Monday morning so I could go do my community service at Carbondale Ranch. Here you go, kid. You'll find Mr. Hassler at the main house. I'll be back to get you at 6 o'clock. And my courteous police chauffeur drove off. I took my time getting to the house. It was a really nice spread. There was a huge pasture to the west, and I could see a herd of cattle grazing in the distance. To the east of the driveway, there was a string of small buildings with pens. Some had baby cows, some had sheep, and one had 3 llamas. The house was at the end of the drive, and a huge barn stood just behind it. Everything was painted red with white trim except the main house. It was white with a picket fence. The whole place would have been really hokey, but that morning it actually looked kind of, well, neat. If you're planning on just lazing about, it'll take you the next 3 months to finish your community service instead of just 3 weeks. I only give credit for time actually spent working, not for hours just being here. I looked up into a pair of bright blue eyes at exactly my level. The old man had white hair, not gray or silver, but white. He wasn't hunched over at the shoulders. In fact, just looking at him made me straighten up and put my shoulders back, and I lift my chin to meet his gaze. Well, boy, his voice rasped a little. Are you just going to stand there gaping and wasting time, or are you going to give me your name? Sean. Sean, you got a last name, Sean? I was already tired of the theatrical drill sergeant act. You got my papers, look it up. His eyes narrowed and he took a step forward. Involuntarily, I stepped back. We were the same height and build, but he seemed bigger. Name, he barked. Shoulders back, chin up. I barked right back. Sean Parker. He continued to stare. Sir. I almost thought I saw his lips quiver. Instead, he just nodded. Better come on, the stalls need mucking. I stared. What? He snorted in exasperation. The stalls need the manure removed. You shovel it out, put it in a spreader, and then we'll spread it in the garden next week. He had started walking toward the small barns I had passed on the way in. I stayed where I was. No way. I'm not spending the rest of my day shoveling crap. He did an about face and marched right back to me. stopping only when his face was 3 inches from mine. This time I held my ground. We locked gazes, and I promised myself I wouldn't back down first. I only hoped I looked as half as furious as he did. "Shoveling manure," he finally drawled with more sarcasm than I had ever heard in 2 words in my life, "is what you'll do for 2 reasons. One, it's what you've been doing all your life with your lies and screwing around. And two, because it's all you're good at right now." I still didn't drop my gaze. Neither did he. I suppose we had only stayed that way for a few seconds, but it felt like hours. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, he threw back his head and laughed. I thought he had gone crazy. "Boy, with that determined look set to piss everybody off, it's amazing you ain't been killed yet. Let's go. You already wasted 15 minutes you're not getting credit for, and the sheep ain't gonna clean the stalls for you." He turned around and started walking again. This time I followed him. I finished the small barn with the llamas in just an hour and a half and moved on to the barn with the baby cows. Mr. Hasser informed me that they're called calves. Compared to the llamas, the calves almost smelled good, and they looked a lot friendlier too. I really didn't like the llamas, with their beady eyes and raggedy coats. The calves had big, trusting eyes. One little black and white one in particular seemed intent on following me around and in general getting in my way. Finally, I got tired of tripping over him. I put the shovel down, intending to pick him up and send him in another stall while I finished the one I was in. Then I realized I had no idea how to pick up a cat, let alone a calf. I think he realized that at the same time I did, because he butted my hand with his head, looking for attention. "I knew you were a lollygagger when I saw you waltzing down the drive this morning. Boy, don't you know the meaning of word work?" I jerked upright. How dare he? I'd been busting my butt in his crummy barns for 3 hours. I opened my mouth to explain, but before the thought even completed itself, another one took over. Who cared what he thought, anyway? Let him think I was a loser, just like all the other stupid adults did. You try to reason with an adult, and all they think you're doing is making excuses. He shook his head. "Come on, supper's on." "Supper? Isn't it a little early for supper? Shouldn't we have lunch first?" "I have what I call supper in the afternoons and dinner at night," he shrugged. "You can call it what you want, but it's still food. So are you coming, or are you going to smart off some more?" My stomach rumbled. The last thing I had eaten was cold pizza yesterday morning. "I'm coming," I said, opening the gate. "Ahem." He cleared his throat and stared at my shovel on the ground. Flushing, I picked it up and leaned it against the wall. He sighed. "Boy, around here you need to put things away when you're done with your chores or taking a break. You don't leave tools where another man or animal can get hurt on them." He turned and took 2 steps toward the house before adding over his shoulder, "And you wash up good before you set yourself down at my table." I headed towards the storeroom and put the shovel away. When I had gone with Mr. Hassel to get it in the morning, he had led me in and out of the main barn so quickly I hadn't had a chance to look around at all. This time I walked slowly, stopping to look at all the horses in their stalls. When I was little, I was fascinated by horses. I used to dream of running away and stealing a horse and living in the mountains, just me and my horse. He was always a big black horse in my dreams, with a mane that hung down past his neck and tail and swept around when he walked. The biggest problem with the dream was that I never touched a horse, let alone ridden one. As I looked at all the horses in the stalls, I felt a little afraid of them. Having never been next to a horse except in my dreams, I had not realized how big they really are. There was one dark brown horse who came and stuck his head out the door and looked at me when I came by. I looked up at the nameplate hanging above his head. "Hi there, Star," I said, looking at the white mark on his forehead. Someone with a good imagination must have thought it looked like a star. Star stretched her neck out pretty far and tried to sniff me. Then Star snorted. When I jumped, Star jumped too. I looked around to see if anyone had seen me. I felt really stupid. I reached out, trying to touch Star's forehead. The horse let me pretty close. I was smiling, still trying to relax, when my stomach rumbled again. Star jerked his head up really fast, and I jumped away again. I decided to go put the shovel away so I could eat. It took me longer than I expected to put the shovel away, because when I leaned it against the wall in the storeroom, it fell over and took several other tools with it. Already I knew better than to leave the storeroom a mess, so I straightened everything up. By the time I got to the main house, I was starving. The only thing I had on my mind was shoving as much food in my face as soon as I could. I made the mistake of going to the table without washing. It was a mistake I would never make again. I pulled a chair back from the table, but as I went to sit in it, it was pulled out from underneath me. I landed hard on my butt on the tile floor. "Oh," I roiled. "What'd you do that for?" "Let me see your hands." "What?" "Not more than 10 minutes ago I told you to wash up before you sat down at my table. I didn't hear any water running in the house, so I'd like to know how you cleaned yourself up without it." I glared at him. "Sorry," I said in one of my better, snotty voices. "I forgot. I'll go do it right now." "Yes," Mr. Hasler said, "you will." Then he proceeded to half drag, half push me up to the bathroom. He immediately started to wash my hands and my face for me. "Geez, man, I can do it myself," I said, trying to wrench away from him. "Nope," he said. "Obviously you don't know how to do this, or you would have done it when I asked you to. So I'll just show you how it's done." He just kept on washing me, not seeming to notice that I was struggling. I did my best to stop him, but he was a tough old fart. I didn't realize I had said that out loud until he accidentally got a lot of soap in my mouth. "Yuck, watch it. I told you I can do this, and I'm a lot better than you. I won't miss and get it in my mouth." I leaned over the sink and spit as much of the suds as I could out of my mouth. "I didn't miss," he said, calmly continuing to scrub my face after I finished spitting. "Right now your mouth seems to be as dirty as your hands. I'm just trying to help you clean it up." "Oh, you're real funny," I said. He tossed me a towel and started out of the bathroom. "I'm assuming I won't have to help you again." His voice rose in a question. When I didn't respond immediately, he turned and started to take a step toward me. "No," I said quickly. "No, sir, you won't have to do this again." After that wonderful experience, I really didn't think I had much of an appetite left, but the food was delicious. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, carrots and peas, lemonade, and an apple pie waiting for dessert. I hadn't eaten this well since I'd spent the night at a friend's house 2 months ago, and his mom made us dinner. Unfortunately, the company was awkward. I didn't know what to say to the old man, and it was just the two of us. He said his ranch hand James was in town making a delivery and placing an order for grain. It would have been bad enough to have two of us eating together, but to top it off, he had to sit there and just stare at me. He didn't eat anything, and he made no effort to talk either. I still managed to stuff 3 pieces of chicken in my face and 2 helpings of the vegetables. It wasn't easy. I hate eating when people watch me, but man, I was hungry. "You still got room for pie?" he asked gruffly. I nodded. He served me a piece that looked like a quarter of the pie. "Wow, thanks." "You're welcome." He sat back in his chair and fished a pipe out of his shirt pocket. He stuck it in his mouth without tobacco and without lighting it. I must have looked at him in a strange way, because suddenly he grinned and almost looked embarrassed. "I picked this up in the war, and when I returned, the wife made me give it up. Well, I gave up smoking, but I can't seem to give up the pipe." "Oh," I said, and felt really stupid. I racked my brain for something else to say. "Well, what war?" I asked, and then I felt even stupider. He looked at me for a long moment, and he said, "World War II." "Oh," I said again, grasping frantically. "Were you in the Air Force?" "Army." "Oh," I nodded gravely, but couldn't think of anything else to say, so I shoved another bite of pie in my mouth. He just watched me. It was beginning to get a little spooky. I finished the pie and pushed my chair back so quickly I almost knocked it over. "I guess I'll get back to work." And then I couldn't help myself. After all, I want to get as many hours of credit these next 3 days as I can. I tried, but I know my voice didn't make the sarcasm sound nearly as cutting as his did. "Why aren't you in school?" "Didn't you read my file?" I moaned. "I know why you're here, for community service," Mr. H said flatly. "But usually community service has to be done on your own time, not while you're supposed to be in school." I was suspended. "For what?" "Fighting." "What was this fight about?" I gave him a bored look. "Nothing." "Nothing? That's got to be the worst reason I've ever heard for fighting. If you're going to fight, there ought to be a reason for it." I didn't say anything. "How long is your suspension?" 3 days out of school, and then 2 days in. So if you don't mind, I'd like to get as many hours as I can between now and Wednesday night. After Wednesday, all the hours would be coming out of my weekends and after school time. That was my time, and I didn't want to lose it. What's this in you're talking about? In school suspension. I go to school, but instead of going to my classes, they put me in a separate room at a desk and I do schoolwork. And I'll be bored out of my mind all day. You're kidding. I shook my head. His face crinkled up in a mixture of confusion and distaste. What's the purpose of that? I shrugged. How was I supposed to know? Okay, he said, sighing and shaking his head. I'll come and get you for a short break at 3:30. It'll probably take you the rest of the day to finish the small barns. We'll hit the big one tomorrow.